Welcome to English with Zenko Master. Get ready to learn something new today.
My name is Alina. I am 24 years old, and I live in a quiet hill town called Marrow Ridge. It is a small, peaceful place with narrow streets and old stone houses. People here know each other. Some would say that makes it safe and friendly. Others, like me, would say it makes it hard to keep secrets. I have lived here all my life, working at a little bookstore on the main street. My parents died when I was in college, so I live alone now. Most evenings I go for long walks, trying to clear my thoughts. But there is one thought I can never quite walk away from. His name is Raphael. Raphael moved to Marrow Ridge a year ago. He came from the city, looking for a slower life. He was older than me by a few years, 30 or so, with dark eyes that never seemed to hurry. He opened a small art studio next to the bookstore, and soon everyone in town was talking about the quiet painter with the soft voice. He wasn't just good at painting. He was kind. He helped the older women carry their groceries. He gave free art lessons to children. And slowly, gently, he became a part of all our lives, including mine. At first, I only saw him in passing. A smile, a short wave, a brief chat about the weather when we passed each other in the morning. But then we started talking more. I would bring him tea from the cafe next to my shop. He would show me his sketches and ask for my opinion. One rainy day, when the power went out, we sat in the back of his studio with candles and talked for hours. We laughed. We shared stories. I felt something bloom inside me that night, something warm and hopeful. I thought it was only between us. I thought I was the only one falling. Then came Ava. Ava was my best friend. We had known each other since school. She was confident, bright, and beautiful in a way that made people stop and stare. Where I was quiet, Ava was bold. Where I hesitated, she jumped. We balanced each other. Or at least, we used to. She had been away for almost 2 years, working abroad. Then one morning she walked into the bookstore like no time had passed at all. Her arms full of books. Her smile just the same. I was happy to see her. Truly. But something changed the moment I introduced her to Raphael. His eyes lit up in a way I had not seen before. And Ava, always quick to read a room, noticed. She asked about him after we left. I said he was a friend. Just a friend. But even as I said it, my heart gave a quiet ache. They started spending time together. It was innocent at first. She visited his studio, said she wanted to learn painting. He seemed surprised but pleased. I watched from a distance, telling myself not to be silly. He was allowed to have friends. She was my friend. I should be happy they were getting along. But inside me, a storm had begun. And it refused to calm. One afternoon, I walked into the studio to bring Raphael a book he had asked about. I opened the door and found them laughing. Not the polite kind of laughter. The deep kind. The kind that says something private had just been shared. When they saw me, they both quieted. Ava smiled. Raphael stood up and thanked me for the book. Everything seemed normal, but something had shifted. Later that evening, I asked Ava about him. She shrugged and said he was interesting. Nothing more, but I could see it in her eyes. The spark. The same spark I had seen in mine weeks before. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about how easily love can become a triangle. One heart pulling toward another while another quietly breaks. I told myself I was imagining things, that Ava wouldn't do that Raphael wouldn't. But I was wrong. It was a Friday when it happened. I remember because the bookstore was quiet and the rain had been falling since morning. Ava came in, her hair damp, her eyes shining. She told me she and Raphael had kissed. She said it like a confession, but also like a victory. I tried to smile. I even said I was happy for her. Then I walked into the back room and stayed there until my hands stopped shaking. That evening, I didn't go for a walk. I sat by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. My chest felt tight. I kept thinking about how things had started. The tea, the laughter, the night with the candles. I wondered if Raphael had felt the same, or if I had imagined it all. Ava texted me later that night. She said she hoped I wasn't upset, that she didn't mean to hurt me. I didn't reply. I didn't know how. The next few days were strange. I still saw Raphael sometimes. He still smiled, still talked to me, but it felt different, like there was a curtain between us now, something unseen but very present. Ava came by often, her laughter echoing louder than before. I tried to be normal. I tried to smile, but my heart was quietly breaking in places no one could see. I thought about telling Raphael how I felt, about the moments we had shared, about the things I thought were real. But what would that change? He had already chosen, and I cared about them both. I didn't want to ruin their happiness, so I made a choice. I stepped aside. I stopped visiting the studio. I let Ava have the space. I focused on the bookstore, on my quiet walks, on the parts of my life that I could control. It hurt. Every day, it hurt. But I told myself I was doing the right thing, that love sometimes means letting go. One evening, as I walked near the old oak tree at the edge of town, I saw them sitting together. Raphael had his arm around Ava. She was resting her head on his shoulder. They looked peaceful, content. I stood for a moment, hidden behind the trees. Then I turned and walked away. Not because I was weak, but because I had loved him enough to want him happy. Even if that happiness didn't include me. But what I didn't know then was that this story wasn't over. Not yet. And what came next would change everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the quiet power of letting go. Before I share the rest of my story, could you please tell me where you're from? It gives me strength to know there's someone out there who listens to me, who understands me. It means a lot to me. The days after I stepped away from Raphael and Ava felt both quiet and loud. Quiet on the outside, because nothing obvious had changed. I still opened the bookstore every morning. I still arranged the display by the window, served regular customers, and tidied up the shelves. But inside, my thoughts were no longer calm. They moved in circles, always coming back to the same painful point. I had given up someone I loved, and now I had to live with that choice. My heart didn't break all at once. It broke slowly, piece by piece, each time I saw them together or heard Ava mention his name. Ava, to her credit, tried to be gentle. She didn't talk much about Raphael when we were alone. I could see that she was trying not to hurt me, but the truth was, she didn't need to say anything. Her eyes told me everything. The way she glowed, the way she smiled without even knowing it was clear that she was in love. And even though I wanted to be happy for her, part of me felt like I was standing outside a house I used to call home, looking through a window at the life I almost had. One Saturday morning, a woman came into the bookstore and asked if we had any poetry about unspoken love. I helped her find something by Rainer Maria Rilke, but her question stayed with me all day. It felt like she had reached into my chest and put a name to what I had been carrying. My love for Raphael had never been truly spoken. I had shared laughter, thoughts, and dreams with him, but I had never used the word love. And now it was too late. The window had closed, and I was left standing on the other side, holding words I would never say. A week passed, then another. I didn't hear much from Ava, and Raphael didn't stop by anymore. It was strange how quiet my life had become. I didn't realize how much I had come to depend on their presence, their energy, their warmth. Without them, the bookstore felt colder. My walks felt longer. My heart felt heavier. Then, on a rainy Tuesday, Ava showed up again. She looked different, like she hadn't slept well. Her eyes were tired, and there was a stiffness in her voice that hadn't been there before. "Can we talk?" she asked. We sat near the window, listening to the rain tapping on the glass. She didn't speak for a moment. Then she sighed and said, "Raphael hasn't been the same." I didn't know what to say. I looked at her, unsure if she was blaming me or just sharing. "I think he still cares about you," she added softly. The words surprised me. "We don't talk anymore." She nodded slowly. "That doesn't mean the feelings are gone." I wanted to believe her, but I didn't know if I could. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I thought I could live with it," she said, "with knowing you loved him first, with feeling like I had taken something. But I can't. It's not fair to any of us." I felt like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. I had expected many things from Ava, but not this. "I never told you how I felt because I didn't want to ruin our friendship," I said. She gave me a sad smile. "And I didn't want to admit that I was afraid of losing him to you, even when I had him." We sat in silence after that, both of us tangled in regrets. Later that evening, I walked alone again, this time heading toward the cliffs just outside town. The wind was cold and the sea below was wild, but I needed to feel something stronger than the ache in my chest. I stood there for a long time, thinking about what Ava had said. If Raphael truly did care, then why hadn't he come to me? Why had he let so much time pass? The answer came 2 days later. Raphael showed up at the bookstore. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. He always carried himself with quiet confidence, but now he was fidgeting with his sleeves, his eyes uncertain. "I need to talk to you," he said. I gestured to the small reading table near the back, and we sat down. "I made a mistake," he began. "Not just with Ava, but with you. I saw the way you looked at me. I felt it, but I wasn't ready to face it. I was scared." I stayed quiet, letting him continue. "I care about Ava, but it never felt the same as it did with you. When you stopped coming around, I felt the loss like a stone in my chest." I looked at him, unsure what to say. My heart was beating too fast. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said, "but I needed you to know the truth." Part of me wanted to scream at him. Another part wanted to cry. But most of me just sat there, trying to understand if this was real or just another twist in a story that had already taken too much from me. "You said nothing when I left," I replied. "You let me walk away." "I know," he said, "and I've regretted it every day since." We talked for a long time about what had happened, about what could have happened, about everything that had been left unsaid. By the end, I felt exhausted, but lighter somehow. Not because everything was fixed, but because the silence had finally been broken. Ava came by the next day. I told her about the conversation. She listened quietly, then gave me a small, tired smile. "I think I'm leaving Marrow Ridge," she said. "I need to find out who I am when I'm not chasing love." I walked her to the edge of town the following morning. We hugged, and I felt a sadness I couldn't quite name. We had lost so much between us, but somehow I believed we would be okay one day. Weeks passed. Raphael and I didn't rush into anything. We spoke now and then. We met for tea sometimes. It was awkward at first, then easier. We didn't talk about the past much. We just let the present breathe. One afternoon, we walked along the lake again, like we used to. The air was warm, and the trees were full of spring. "I still don't know if this can work," I said quietly. "I don't either," he replied. "But I'd like to find out." For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was chasing someone or running from something. I just felt present, seen, and maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something true. Spring slowly turned into summer. The days grew longer, and the light stayed soft well into the evenings. Marrow Ridge felt warmer, not just in weather but in spirit. The bookstore became busier, and people stayed longer to talk, to read, to share their thoughts. I found myself smiling more often. I did not realize how long I had been holding my breath until I finally began to breathe again. Raphael visited more regularly. He came by to bring coffee or a new book he thought I would enjoy, or simply to sit and read by the window. Our conversations grew deeper, not louder. We talked about regrets, about choices, about the strange way love can drift and return. We never pretended that the past hadn't happened, but we also didn't let it control the space we were now building. I did not tell him I loved him. Not yet. I didn't need to rush it this time. What we had now was not rushed. It was slower, more careful, like two people learning to trust not just each other but also themselves again. Ava sent letters from time to time. She was in Barcelona now, teaching English and painting in the evenings. She said the light there made her want to start over. In her words, I felt something calm, as if she had finally stopped running. She never once mentioned Raphael again, and I understood. Some things are better left in the past. One afternoon, I closed the shop early and walked to the studio. Raphael was finishing a new painting, something bright and full of light. He wiped his hands and smiled when he saw me. "I think this one might be my best yet," he said. I looked at the canvas and saw the soft hills of Merrow Ridge in the background, the lake shimmering below, and in the center, a woman with a book in her lap. Her face was turned toward the sky. "She looks like she's at peace," I said. "She is," he replied. "She had to let go of a lot to find that peace." We stood quietly together, just looking at the painting. Then he turned to me. "Alina, I want to be honest with you. I'm not asking you to forget everything, but I hope you'll let me try to be the person you once believed in." I took a deep breath. My heart felt full, but not heavy. "I'm not the same girl you first met. I've changed." "I know," he said. "And I like the woman you've become even more." That night, we walked to the old oak tree at the edge of town. The stars were just beginning to appear. The grass was cool beneath our feet. We sat under the tree in silence for a long time. "I used to come here when I didn't know what to do," I told him, "when my heart felt too full." "I came here too," he said. "After we stopped talking." I looked at him and smiled softly. Maybe that's why this place always felt sacred. He reached out and gently held my hand. I didn't pull away. I let myself feel the warmth, not just from his hand, but from everything we had survived. "I want this to work," I whispered. "So do I," he answered. And for the first time, those words didn't feel like a risk. They felt like a beginning. In the weeks that followed, our connection grew in quiet ways. We cooked meals together, shared books, and sometimes sat in silence with no need to fill the air. There was no big declaration, no sudden rush, just the steady presence of someone who wanted to stay. One evening, while closing the shop, I found an old letter tucked behind one of the shelves. It was from my mother, written years ago, before she passed. I had forgotten it even existed. The letter spoke about love, about how it doesn't always arrive the way we expect. She wrote that real love sometimes takes time to grow roots, and that pain is part of the soil that makes those roots strong. I read that letter by the fire, tears rolling down my face. Not because I was sad, but because I felt understood, even after all this time. My mother had known something I had only just begun to understand. Love is not a perfect story. It is a journey full of doubts, mistakes, forgiveness, and courage. One Saturday morning, Raphael asked me if I wanted to visit the city with him. Just for the day. I agreed. It was a short train ride, and we spent the day exploring art galleries and small cafes. He showed me places from his past, and I shared memories of books I had read that were set in those same streets. As the sun began to set, we sat by the river. He looked at me with a quiet expression I had come to know well. "Elena," he said, "there is something I've been meaning to ask." I turned toward him, my heart suddenly nervous. "I know we've been taking things slow, and I know there's still healing to do, but I want to walk through life with you. Will you be with me?" The question wasn't dramatic. It wasn't shouted or wrapped in poetry, but it was real. And I realized, in that moment, I had been waiting for something simple and true. "Yes," I said, smiling. "Yes, I will." When we returned to Marrow Ridge that evening, the sky was full of stars. I looked up at them and felt a peace I had never known. Not because everything had turned out perfectly, but because I had chosen to stay true to my heart, even when it hurt. I had loved. I had lost. And now I was loving again, not from fear or need, but from strength. Over time, Raphael and I built a life that felt like ours. We didn't rush into marriage or make big promises. We just showed up for each other day after day. And in that showing up, we created something steady and deep. The bookstore became a little brighter. Raphael added a small gallery in the back where local artists could display their work. Ava sent postcards from around the world. I kept them all in a box under my bed, reminders of how far we had all come. Sometimes I still think about the girl I was when this all began. Quiet, unsure, afraid to speak her feelings. I want to hold her hand and tell her she was brave, that stepping aside was not weakness. It was love in its most selfless form. And love, I have learned, always finds its way back when it is true. Now, when I walk by the lake or sit under the oak tree, I smile. I remember everything. Not with pain, but with gratitude. Because every piece of that story, every tear, every silence, every step away led me here. Here, where love didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to be real. I hope you have enjoyed the story. Like and comment if you want to hear more soon.